the sensitivity of the microphone. Sorry. It's Wednesday business session. We are going to the pledge and start our meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, folks. I was saying earlier to somebody that the summer's almost over and I almost got hit, so I will not be saying. I'm still 10% of the summer apparently left, so and the weather's supposed to be really great this week. So we're just gonna start off that this past Friday was what I now term as a mega fire. So many rescue folks, fire departments were here. The parade was obviously canceled, and by the grace of God, we had a lot of our firefighters on hand from all over the county and I think outside the county. So we're very appreciative for the officers, fire department, the county folks that came, and everybody else that was there. No one was hurt miraculously. It was a little bit of a freaky accident that occurred when a lightning bolt hit the building. It's been all over social media and everywhere. We updated people today, yesterday, my mayor's message. This is actually in the town of Ossining, so if you have comments, questions, you want to help the folks that were displaced from their homes, please call the supervisor's office. There are a number of organizations that are supplying food and hotels, and the community is really, well, I've always said this, the community is amazing. We saw it during COVID, we see it now. It's a great community. I was saying to the chief who's sitting here that the Honorable Margaret Kunzio was the keynote speaker or something I went to last night. She actually mentioned she happens to be a volunteer firefighter from Thornwood. And it was one thing she mentioned about how she enjoys being an elected official because for her, it's really just about helping people and communities coming together. She said it more beautifully than I, but I do appreciate everybody. I put it in my mayor message, the deputy mayor did a nice video thanking everyone. He might want to say more about it, and then we'll talk about a couple things going on this weekend.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So to add some detail to some of the pieces that the mayor mentioned in terms of the response. So we had 38 agencies that were there in person, and you had the condo residents that were out providing water and snacks and all that, particularly in the days that followed. There continued to be flare-ups and things like that. So the community immediately there followed up. The cars that were in the garage were thankfully unharmed, and we had community member Bobby Nolan, who owns a shop here in the village, and he's detailing all of their cars for free, which is amazing. What a gift. We have restaurants that are donating food. If you want to help the folks impacted by the fire, by giving money, that's always helpful. The Galata House is accepting donations that they're going to be giving to the families, and you can find information on their website. And then if you have clothes that you want to donate, both IFCA and Ossining Padres Hispanos they're both collecting clothes, and it's helpful because they're able to go through the clothes and sort them and make it so that the families can then go into their spaces and shop for free. So those are some of the ways that you can help.
Great. I'm just gonna add that I got a call from 914 Cares. So if you have relatives or friends that want to help and they're outside of Ossining, 914 Cares are countywide. They're also supplying. They're usually known for supplying diapers and things for children, but they actually also do coats and clothing and shoes. So just opportunities for those that are interested. This weekend, we have members of our community at Nelson Park doing a back to school program, sneaker giveaway, and just a lot of family fun and time. So, and it's done by Star Bethel, and it's done by our very own youth bureau is involved, and some folks in Peekskill as well. So that's one thing that I know is happening this weekend. Anybody else have anything to inform the public? Anything else going on? Okay, we're ready to go. Village manager.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to suggest a little change in order since we have Chief Sparduzio here. This is a relatively short topic, but if you wanna, come up and, maybe give some, yeah, if you can.
Yeah, so-
You can sit right here.
Yeah, the
Sure,
speaker
great, thank you.
system, the speaker system is everywhere now,
Okay.
so we don't have those things anymore, the microphones. Wherever you wanna sit in the room, you are gonna be very clearly heard.
Okay,
How are you?
I'm good. Good evening, everybody. The chiefs send their regards. Unfortunately, two are out of town on fire department business this week, and Chief Rinaldi is at the fire department graduation tonight. So they asked me to step in and speak on their behalf. As everybody here is aware, they should be, that the elevator at fire headquarters is now been out of service for several months. At some point over the winter, during one of the very cold snaps, and with all the snowstorms that we had, apparently an ice dam formed on the roof, which pushed up under the shingles. As soon as the weather started to warm, it obviously thawed out and water ran down the elevator shaft and found its way onto all the control boards for the elevator, in turn frying. To my understanding, at this point, the parts are unreplaceable. Right?
So the elevator is
That's where we're
about
at here.
30,
It's
it's
about
about
30
30 years old. Well, it wouldn't be that old there.
Oh, no, yeah, it's
So
not.
it's however old the building is, which is about 25 years.
25.
Right, so it's, the elevators have about a 30-year life, and it was sort of at the end of its life, but probably would have eaten a few more years if, this didn't happen, and just some fortunate position of the leak over the elevator shaft. My understanding is, John Heitman, so basically our facilities manager, tried to source parts. A lot of these parts are obsolete. So we estimate that it's probably, you know, we've gotten some prices, but the cost of getting the equipment in that we need to get to make the elevator operable again is about $150,000 in that ballpark. So we have to go out to bid. So this really just to bring forward. We were hoping that maybe we could get some other less expensive, easier options. That did not work out. So we will have to go out to bid on the equipment, and this is to alert board, because we would need a resolution authorizing this to go out to bid.
All right. Questions, comments? Anybody?
If parts aren't available, what are we buying?
So, you know, unfortunately, I don't have as much background as I would usually like to have at this meeting, but, there is, John had thought that the, actual motherboard or whatever it is that operate, that could be replaced, that is not possible. So this would be actually, replacing, it's a larger replacement, so as opposed to the individual parts, it would be a larger replacement of the actual. Again, I'm not gonna explain this really great, but we'll make sure we have that information, and obviously it'll be in the bid spec. So the kind of good news about this, a lot of our elevators, like, you know, are somewhat proprietary, so if they're made by a certain company, if always go back to that company, the equipment that we'd be able to replace it with would be, sort of, you know, it wouldn't be specific to any one elevator company. So that makes it a little bit easier. We are meeting with somebody next week too. Andy and I are meeting with somebody. It's possible there might be something on, Sourcewell that we could get, through, I'm just not sure yet because I need to know more specifically. I don't know if you know more than I do about the technical.
I wish I did. To my understanding, it's almost a whole brand new elevator. That, you know, that the
But
car itself may be salvageable,
Yeah.
but the entire electronics that's in it, you know, all the buttons, everything would have to be basically taken out and replaced with all new electronics.
So I'm gonna sort of cut to the chase. I think we're approving blindly. The thing needs to be done. They don't have a lot of information. Option one is to delay this and say, get us more detail on what we're doing. Option two, which I have no problem with, is they think it's gonna cost, they're gonna look at it. It has to be done, so maybe it'll be 50,000, maybe 125. I mean, they're not gonna spend more than they need to. It's one of these things has to get done. Thing is broken, it has to be replaced, but I don't give the usual amount of information, mechanics, parts. I'm okay with that, because it just needs an elevator's broken, they need to fix it. We can delay, but what for, is my question.
So, I think for me, it comes down to, there are two questions, I think,
Right.
one, are we gonna have the money for it? Because
But
this is on budget expense. I think.
Yeah, I mean, we would have it in our contingency budget,
Okay,
so.
and then my second question is, root causes issue. Do we know that there isn't a roof issue around the rest of the building?
So, in this case, it was an ice dam. But one of the things that we are doing is, and this is sort of an extension of the survey we did with Mitchell Associates on the conditions of the firehouses. We're also looking at all our buildings. We have somebody coming in who does work with municipal buildings, mostly school districts, but also municipalities, firehouses, to give us an idea of what it would, how we can maybe take what we have, which we have a lot, like, we basically have a preventive maintenance plan, but I think it would be helpful to maybe have somebody with more technical expertise to just give us the okay, because again, the roof is 25 years old now, so right now, it was nice down, so it wasn't like the roof was leaking, but eventually the roof's gonna need to be replaced, so just getting ahead of that curve. So Andy and I are meeting with somebody next week. I believe, I think it's next week. They'll get us a proposal on that, but right now, in advance of budget, season, we wanna have all of the, maintenance requirements. We're looking to lock that down now, so as we go into September, and as the departments come in and ask for their budgets, we've already. The first rung of the ladder is making sure all of our property maintenance is dealt with, so we are gonna be taking a look at roofs and just anticipating, if it's not this year, even putting it out into the capital plan when we're gonna need roofs on certain buildings. And then we're also looking at the firehouses in terms of, there is interest at the fire department to potentially start the consolidation now. And we're looking to see if, Northside perhaps can, can absorb, another company, and what that would take and how we would do that, because, right now, a new firehouse is probably, just because we don't have a viable site, readily available. But we want to start consolidating to the degree that makes sense and get more operational efficiency that way.
it's a little bit of a shit,
Yeah,
and
look for it.
it's, but it's gotta start somewhere. Any other comments?
No, unless anybody has any other questions.
No.
All right,
Thank you.
all right,
Have a great
thank you
evening.
for moving the agenda around for me, appreciate it.
No
Have a
problem.
good one.
Take care.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
And thank
Good
you
night,
again for
Chief.
this past weekend.
No, thank you.
All right, next I'd like to invite Valerie Nasha to sit up here with us. We have two topics that Valerie will be discussing tonight. First is small scale zoning, and this is the referral from the planning board and discussion of their feedback that we're getting from them, specifically regarding staircases and the setback, which is a really super interesting topic for those who are watching. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Valerie.
Sure, so I provided as part of your packet, basically the whole local law again, this is, zoning where there's really two minor changes that I want to talk to you about tonight. The first, let's talk about stairs. I think this is a recurring conversation. So this conversation, the proposed law went to the planning board. The planning board, and this is also with, opinions from, expressed by your, building inspector, which is why Joe's here to explain a little bit more. But I think the planning board, would like to recommend that instead of it being associated with just replacement or reconstruction, that it is associated with the exemption is for all exterior stairs. That is similar to what the ZBA also recommended, and I think it'd probably be best to turn it over to Joe for him to talk a little bit about the struggle he has in terms of enforcing a replacement or reconstruction.
Hi,
Yes.
Joe.
Good evening all. The issue was, I believe the last time we had a discussion about this, there was some the board of trustees yourselves had the idea of maybe only exempting it for replacement stairs, but to enforce the setbacks on new stairs. And we talked about it being a little bit complicated because, sometimes, they have to replace a staircase and maybe the staircase that they're replacing is not code compliant to today's standards. For example, say the threads and the riser heights are not the correct ones, and now when they're replacing them, they have to bring them to today's standards, which may change that staircase essentially to a new staircase, maybe because it doesn't have the proper width or the proper length, and therefore the stairs where it may have only been, 3 feet from the property line may end up now having to be 1 foot from the property line with the new set of staircase. And then we thought that maybe, may become an issue. We're conflictual with homeowners of what's really considered a replacement as opposed to brand new. If I move the staircase on my porch, I had to move it 3 feet to the right because, with the location where it was doesn't work anymore. But I'm essentially replacing a staircase. We thought it would become complicated on defining what's a replacement and what's new. Also, in almost all municipalities, I don't know of any that really use the staircase as part of a setback requirement in any of their laws. Most of the times when I get surveys from any land surveyors, they automatically will do their survey with the setbacks to the structure, be it the porch, the deck, the house, and never put a setback for the stairs. And when I ask them and say, well, our code right now says that the stairs count into the setback, so you have to put it in. They do so, but they'll always respond to me and say, Ossining seems to be the only one that does that. Most of the homes that are replacing stairs or having to build new ones, the properties right now are not in conformance with setbacks, as they stand right now. Many of these homes don't have 30-foot front yard setbacks, let alone the staircases. So, we all thought that it was best, including speaking with the planning board and the zoning board, that it would be best to just exempt the staircases altogether if the board of trustees were amenable to that. That we think it would be a lot easier on the homeowners and, to not have it as a requirement, because every time I ever send them to the zoning board anyway for a variance, 100 out of 100, they grant them anyway. So putting people to the process of going to the zoning board and the cost and the time seems to be unnecessary if essentially they're always going to get a variance approval anyway. So we're here asking if it would be considered for the board to just exempt the staircase and setback requirements altogether.
Any comments?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Me too.
Sounds like the simplest and easiest solution. Yeah, I mean, our concern is always that people add things in order to then enlarge their inner house so that they're using it as a business to rent out. So anything that avoids that, and this sounds like this would not be the issue, because I think zoning and planning understands our concern. So it seems fine.
There's one other item that we're proposing to, just, amend in terms of the last, revisions, last version of the zoning, edits that, you saw. And this deals with, parking on the ground floor. So we specifically, there currently right now, there is a requirement that except for 1 or 2 family dwellings, parking is not permitted in the portion of the first floor, extending the minimum 40 feet back from the front building. And this was a section that the building inspector requested us to look at and amend, because it gets a little bit confusing as to like this measurement, and it just makes it more complicated also for a property owner. So what we did was we introduced, and this was something that you reviewed and agreed to, and the planning board generally agreed to as well, that except for 1 and 2 family dwellings, the first floor shall not be used solely for parking. What we are proposing to do, because there are some circumstances in the village that it might make sense to have a building with first floor parking, that we wanted to put in a waiver, they put a waiver provision so that the planning board could potentially waive or modify that provision based on the unique characteristics of the site, provided that it finds that the waiver or modification is consistent with the purposes of this chapter and the zoning district. So, for example, if it was something in the downtown, the planning board would not see that as, you know, part of, like, the whole point of the downtown is to have the mixed use. But if for some reason there is a situation in one of your planned waterfront districts or something like that, where it makes sense to have parking on the first floor, and then have the residential or whatever uses on the second floor, that allows them to have that provision. So that's that's the other modification that we're requesting.
Are there already apartment buildings that do that?
Well, there are some, right, and I think there are some, and the purpose of this was to prevent additional ones just automatically as of right. So, but, you know, we also don't want to exclude it and be so restrictive that everybody has, if there is a situation where it makes sense to modify, just allow the planning board to modify that.
So is there any provision for, if it's gonna be under the dwelling on the first floor, any provision for sprinklers to be in there?
But that would automatically, I mean, that's part of the building code.
Yes, so if it's definitely mandated by the building code, they would have to put a sprinkler system. In most cases, when you're doing a parking garage that has significant number of vehicles, I will trigger a sprinkler system to be installed there.
Any other comments or questions
Makes sense.
on this side?
The planning board has a good understanding, like you just said, right, like, we.
Well, they see a lot of,
How many people that make decisions.
and they're seeing a lot of it on a regular basis. And they meet now, the planning and zoning now hold meetings with Matty Sahaj to review more like macro issues. So the right hand knows what the left hand is doing when needed. It's not always that we both look at it. So, yeah. You guys good? You guys good? Looks like a forward motion on that one as well.
Alright, so that will, I think this will end up being a local law that gets potentially introduced.
We'll do a resolution next week to call for the public hearing in September.
So, this is part of your larger project of revisiting all the codes, am I right?
Yeah, so
Like
this
these were
is,
pieces that we were sort of
yes,
like
there's one more
massaging
round.
as we went along, that
Right.
didn't fit neatly into the
Yeah.
package.
Yeah, there's one more round that's gonna be coming to you in the next month or so.
Okay.
And that's the third, round of these, what we're calling small zoning, amendments.
Right. Thank you, Valerie.
And next, we're talking about Station Plaza North. And feedback that we've, gotten from the county planning department. So,
Yes, so, Westchester County Planning Department, specifically, raised, and let me just, I apologize. Let me- Well, let me start off with the feedback we received from the public first. We did receive one comment from a property, owner that he wished to bring to the board's attention. So I want to just talk a little bit about that comment first, and then we can go to the county's. The question he had was, right now, the single family and two family homes do require, or right now, the current code that as proposed for the FPN requires all residential units that are being built to get a conditional use permit. A conditional use permit is one of three typical permits that the planning board will issue. And that is, you know, planning board usually issues site plan approval and conditional use approval. And the conditional use approval is basically, it's saying that the use is permitted within the zoning district, but the planning board can add some conditions to it. Right now, in all other zoning districts, like your residential zoning districts and your single family zoning districts and your two family zoning districts, single family, two family homes are exempt from site plan approvals because they just automatically go to BAR approval, which is the Board of Architectural Review. And they also don't require conditional use permits. And so what he is suggesting that in this district for single family and two family homes, that they have the same process as some of the other residential districts. The only reason why we had that as conditional use is because it does allow for the planning board to take a look at the site plan and potentially put some conditions on it, and those properties are very small in that zoning district. However, as part of the third round of the small scale zoning that you're gonna see soon, one of the recommendations that's coming from like the building department and also the planning board is to actually, for all new one family and two family homes, to go through site plan approval, mostly because we're dealing with a lot of stormwater issues now and parking issues, and it allows for the planning board just to work through the layouts of those homes on the site. Because when they only review it for architecture only, it's architecture only and not the other elements associated with the site plan. So if for some reason this board decides to peel back or remove the conditional use requirements and just move forward with Board of Architectural Review, I just wanted you to be aware that like probably in a few months, if the board decides to move forward with the recommendation of the site plan, you know, there will be that review process that will be coming forward with the planning board for new single family or two family homes in any zoning district. And if I need to run through that again, I know it's a little bit complicated because it's like mostly process stuff, I'm happy to do so.
So I understand that we should probably wait until we go through.
Yeah.
Well, you have to bring it up to, so.
You could do that as well, and just then at that point, we can amend the zoning to repeal the the conditional use. I mean, it's really.
It just feels like a two-step process, why bother? Why not just wait a month or two?
Do it all in one shot.
That's what, yeah, I mean, and we can always change things at that point.
That's if you're inclined.
Yeah, but if we're not
For
in
site plan review with 1 and 2s, which has never been the case.
understood,
I'm not saying you have to do that now, obviously, but that's, the board has, it's never been. site
it's a
plan.
new idea. Right,
Yes.
so if we say no to it in 2 months, we then have to also deal with this at that time.
I say we table that discussion until we go through the zoning discussion.
Table this discussion,
Or
So then would you still move forward with because at this point in time, this is ready to be adopted by the board? And we could always make the amendment at that point in terms of
so if we adopt it,
they would just need a conditional
this would
use.
just fold into what we are discussing is on the zone.
If you adopt it now, that means the new regulations would go into effect in terms of people being able to move forward with the residential uses. It would just mean that when they come before the planning board, instead of just Board of Architectural Review approval, they would also need a
Site plan.
conditional use approval.
And this is only affects SPM? Or is this,
1 and 2 family, right?
Yes, just SPN at this point.
The local law you're talking about right now is SPN,
right,
what Valerie's talking about.
it's much
is
broader,
water,
much broader.
Yes,
which includes this.
which would include the SPN.
right, which would include the SPN. So in case you were concerned that removing it would prevent any, you know, there is something coming forward in the next month or so about bringing that review process. And it's mostly because of stormwater, right? And that was the reason why we initially had the conditional use,
Yeah.
because of
That's why.
stormwater and the steep slopes in that area. to
And
have that-
parking and all that
I mean,
other.
that bunch of, for me, it makes sense. Kind of keep it for now, I mean,
So address it in a couple of months.
Yeah.
I think we're all saying. We good with that? Okay, you got that?
Yes,
Okay, because we're all mumbling, so. Okay,
Do you
okay.
want to just mention what the county wanted?
Yeah, so I have
oh, yeah, right, you were gonna look that up.
Yes, all right, so, the county's comments were that we understand the village is proposing to add single through 4-family residential buildings as a conditional use type separate from mixed-use buildings. And that as this will remediate existing non-conforming uses and allow smaller lots for housing. However, there may be confusion due to the proposed retainment of the conditional use requirement that residential units shall only be permitted above non-residential uses and not located on the ground floor in a basement. We suggest this requirement specifically state that is only applicable within mixed use buildings in order to clarify what is permitted. So Stuart and I looked at the table. I think we were gonna make a minor tweak just for that clarification. The second comment that we wanted to talk to this board specifically about is that they also recommend the total number of dwelling units within a mixed-use building not be capped at 6. As such, a requirement may be too constricting for larger property sizes. We suggest the number of permitted units be actually conditioned on the building bulk regulations and required unit square footage rather than prescribing a unit count for all properties. I think, you know, this board has had many discussions on the unit sizes and at this point in time and the unit mix and the capping. So, you know, we're recommending basically keeping it as is because of the fact that the purpose of this zoning district is to encourage the current use of the smaller lots and not consolidating lots into much larger apartment buildings.
But we've had this conversation tons of times.
Yes.
Over lots of months into years, so my one comment is I'd like to do your conviction, just leave it as it is.
I concur that like there's no need to change some of it.
Scheduled for adoption next week.
That's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Next on our agenda, we're going to discuss a license agreement for 15 Stone Court. License for stone wall that we developed in the village space.
Is here, who's the person who made a request to the board that sent to you my letter, his letter, survey, photographs. And there's no question it's pretty mature bill. He did get a note that I also sent to you from Sister Foreman Duffy, indicating that referred to the off the right of way because house and other things on through it's right of years. So again, this invited Mr. Harmer to the meeting because it's his application. We did, as I wrote in my letter, stating a couple of options when we bring this to board for license to chose to do. So I thought it would be appropriate to have here. I'm fence itself does not require a permit because it's under review. It would require HBC approval because it's within a historic district if in fact it's constructed. And that's really the long and short of it. This was noted, I guess, July 27th. I guess someone of the DOD folks was driving by and noticed it. So that's where we are. The building department folks are over there that day, took some photographs, which I provided to you, and then I communicated back and forth with Mr. Harmer. That's why we're doing.
Hello, how did something like this happen? Or
Just get it.
we just built it, I mean, there's no, property map, there's no, where the boundary. Send a.
That's a question.
You can ask him. Just build it.
I have a survey from the building department, which I sent to the folks.
It's all in the email, that's what some of us are. Do you want us to?
So last time, just
Say it.
it's clear.
Yeah, how far?
It's tough. He's right on the curve. He's right on the curve.
Pictures of it?
Yes, Jamie,
Yes.
Oh, so nuts.
can you bring those photos up? That
Sure.
are on the license agreement, thank you.
Sure.
You want?
A license agreement for the construction.
Rain water mountain.
What, do you wanna come up?
There's a couple of different photos. Trustee wanted to test. They see the ocean.
That's gonna look better than this.
Those are photographs by the building department.
Okay.
There's no sidewalks.
No.
Oh, it's still there.
Right,
Do you want me to show you
Okay.
other pages?
That's about it.
That's good.
okay. So is this the completed or is this when it was stopped because they drove by and saw this?
There was a stop on the
Okay. That's what I thought. What is it that you would like us to do?
I'd like to allow the wall to exist as it is. It is substantially complete. I sincerely apologize. I wasn't aware of the village's right of way. They hired a local contractor to try to prevent the issue. We could have spotted something like this, but it happened, but it happened.
But
I just think it would be, maybe infeasible to take down the wall at this point. Like I said, it's substantially complete. And I'm afraid that if the wall were ordered to be torn down, set back, it would require more money, enforcement of the contractor. And I'm just worried about that, what might look like.
right. So.
It's the problem. I mean, if you look at, maybe can you bring
It's
up
more
the
than
survey?
inches.
Sure.
It's more than inches. So,
Can you see?
That's the photo I was looking at. I thought I kept running into plowing. You know, I didn't change, so don't worry about it. It's not there. That's an issue that might definitely be addressed. Because,
The setback is from the center of the road.
yeah, well, but that's correct. But the property line here is, it's a few feet in from there. It's possible that the rear part, the part that's on closer to his house, is actually on the property. Because it's fairly close, but it's definitely where it is. You can see from the survey that the curb. There's a couple of feet between curb and property.
Do you have a survey?
I do, one was provided me by Stuart, it was the first time I'd seen it in his letter. I've been here since 2024, and I didn't have a survey of it, if one should have been provided to me, I didn't receive it or anything else.
well, we'll provide,
I
that's
understand,
your job.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, you own a house, that's your house,
it is,
okay. You're responsible for everything in your property. Mistakes are made, I will tell you that I own a house, I've had work done over the 30-something years. Contractors know what they're supposed to do, it's not the village's job.
Yeah.
They drive by, they clearly saw it, it wasn't even like a guess, they immediately saw it because it's so obvious. We have had people put balls down and redo them because it's your responsibility and your contractor. You could have a long conversation to contractor. But it's a problem. It's a problem for plowing. It's a problem for setting precedents for other people who sit around saying, this guy did it, why can't I? We've had a lot of that. And so it puts us in a very awkward position. And we are very clear that it's not, there's no question that it's expensive and that it adds expense to tear it down and do it again. That is a problem. I have no appetite to give people licenses because they're wrong. And if you ever watch TV and they say ignorance is no excuse, it is. There's also correspondence actually that information was. It was discussed.
there was some indication that from the contractor to one of our code enforcement inspection.
Right, so the contractor, a legitimate licensed contractor. Anywhere, it's not an Ossining thing. He knows this stuff, this is, you can imagine that they would know. Roofs, the pools around the windows, that's the contractor is supposed to know that. It's hard to imagine that they just went and talk this stuff down and say, this could be a problem. I don't know what to tell you, except that it's your responsibility, anything you do on the property. Because we live in a densely populated community. And everything that you do affects your neighbors, and that's what I look at. How does this affect snow plowing? How does it affect traffic patterns? How does it affect everything? Somebody wants to walk over there. And so I'm sort of caught in this, I wish I didn't have to have this conversation with you. And then it comes on, and we're responsible for it, and then that's a bigger problem for us, right? Because you'll come back and say, you will do this, I'm gonna license with you. And so now it's your job to take care of it, not mine. It's your responsibility. All of this to say, like, I have no appetite to give them, I don't. I only want to vote. This is a very, 5 people, just sometimes people think mayors do that. No, I just have to be the first one speaking. I'm going to start on my left and see if people have different opinions, and I feel for you, I really do. I'm like a homeowner myself. It's like expensive to do work. You're trying to improve your home here. I mean, obviously you're trying to do something good. All of that said, it doesn't change the fact that you went and did something, your contractor, whatever he did, it's hard to believe you didn't know. But maybe he didn't, I don't know, I wasn't there. It's a problem. I don't know if anybody has any
Yeah,
other comments.
I wouldn't have as much of a problem, but it's right on the curb. Which is a blatant, you know, you're well within where you should be. So, and as the mayor said, you know, it's a difficult spot, but we don't want to set a precedence. Because there could be somebody watching this meeting saying, well, they granted this guy that and we're gonna pay so much and off you go. It's unfortunate that what has happened, you know, I guess I have a problem granting a license agreement with this because A, we did up on the curb. Yes, will it affect snow? 100%. I don't think the wall would ever be damaged by a plow, but it just affects the whole process with the snow removal, especially on the dead end.
May I say something to address the snowplow
Sure.
relaxation at the point? I've only been here 2 years, but there are constant cars that are parked there. I remember in the last 2 snowstorms, the plows couldn't get to that area in front of where the curb is because there were just 3 cars parked there, and that's during both snowstorms. So I totally hear the snowplow removal, but they didn't get there anyway.
So,
That actually brings a whole different point.
I understand.
That somebody on this side of the table should be taking note about cars parked there during snowstorms so that the plows can't get to it.
Yeah.
We're putting an end to all of that too, all of the cul-de-sacs. And I totally know that you understand that, like, that's not actually a great reason, but you're saying, hey, the plows aren't even that big.
Just trying.
The plows need a certain amount of room. We live in an old, it's mid 1800s. And you're speaking to a guy who drives a fire truck, will tell you these things are so calculated. People don't realize, but I'm sure that's a concern.
Oh, it could be, sure, but, yeah, it's just unfortunate, and the fact that you're right on the curb line makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Did they pour footing for this when they did it underneath?
I understand that there's a gravel base for Allen block construction.
No. I'm over 3 feet.
Not the height of
Because they would have caught that in the process.
if there had been,
If
if there had been an application for a permit, it would have been caught in the building department, yes, but given the height of the wall, it's not required.
So this poses my next question about permits. I know ours is anything over 3 feet. To catch things like this, should be for any wall. Now, they have to get a permit, and it goes through the process, and it doesn't end up costing a homeowner taking it down and rebuilding it again. You know, you see where I'm going with this? You know, to where I understand the 3-foot thing, I totally do. But I'm looking ahead of the game that maybe it should be any fence that you're putting up should be a permit and approved.
what is the, what was there before?
there.
Yeah,
Probably just slope down to the
It's
street.
just next to the street.
just slope.
As well as, and this might influence your decision, there used to be a very large tree there. It was a black locust tree.
Mhm.
And it went well into the street.
Yeah.
The town did take it
Yeah.
down upon my request because it was going into the street. I didn't know who owned it. But I would imagine the same concerns that, you know, you've shared about the walls that is now existed when the tree was there too.
Yeah, ironically, trees is what holds hills in place. It's actually, ironically, the other way around. It's one of the things you learn about trees is we actually have fees against, removing trees unless they're a danger because they actually hold. It's probably one of the reasons your hill's been held in place is the tree was there at some point and because it's an environmental thing. It's a different, the issue is that you did something that shouldn't have been done. Sometimes if something was there and you're replacing, it's a different scenario.
I think
I'm
it's
just
talk to your
explaining.
contractor, I don't know.
Well, yeah, that would
This
be,
is a licensed contractor, which is known.
Yep.
That person is at fault, I would think, if they did not.
Mhm.
I gotta talk to them.
I would agree. I came before you to
Right.
see if that would be,
Yeah.
a license agreement were possible. I don't know, this way this goes. I paid him already.
this is why we also tell people they really should be using paper, not that you didn't, I'm not arguing, and I don't know who you used, I don't wanna know. It's not my personally, it's not my business, but, this is why you hire licensed people. They are supposed to tell you like, you know, you can't do this, you can do that. That's actually one of the main things that they're supposed to be doing. And in different villages, they're supposed to know the codes. I'm sorry, Pat, were you saying something?
Yeah, I was going to. I feel for you, right? I mean, it's an expense and it's tough. And I know you're trying to improve the property, but for me, forget about, it's the wall, forget about it's the right way. I mean, for me, it's also the point of precedent in terms of building a structure where it shouldn't be built. And then begging forgiveness for it afterwards. This board spends a significant amount of time, we just listened to a bunch of discussions around small zoning changes, which are really, we really try to make it as easy as possible, but there also has to be guidelines in such a dense village like this, where people just can't put stuff up, right? That where it doesn't belong, and then say, oops, sorry, let me put it up there, right? So for me, even before we get to the whole, it's on the right of way, and is it okay or not on the right of way? There's the piece around, I feel like we just can't have people putting up stuff and asking for forgiveness that shouldn't be there where it is, and asking for forgiveness because that it's a wall, or it's a building, or it's an apartment, or it's there's just a slope that way that for me is, I don't even get to the point it's in the right of way.
Yeah.
And to make, for me to, come to the position, right? So
Like I
that's-
said,
that's
I understand it's my responsibility.
Yeah.
I didn't look at a survey of my property
Yeah.
beforehand. The only step I took to address your point was to hire a local contractor that was licensed because I thought the issue would be spotted beforehand.
And I did think, and I don't know if you've got a written agreement or something, but maybe there's something in a written agreement that says you gotta follow the rules.
There's no written agreement and English is
That's fine.
is not.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Folks, have we done this? Have we granted license?
Not for this, not for this.
Not for your-
It's like a wall.
Yeah.
You know, somebody needs a couple of inches because the stair ends over
Yeah.
here instead of over here. It's a wall.
Usually the license agreements, and Stuart, correct me if I'm wrong, for sort of pre-existing
Yeah.
conditions that we find out. You know, maybe something built 50 years ago or something.
100 years
Yeah, also pre-existing conditions built before any of us were,
Yeah.
like. Changing it now is not really feasible and it's just been there for a long time. That's
It's a
typically
safety issue.
typically the reason. Because we have a lot of pre-existing non-conforming properties, but not typically for.
Not for something this big. And also, we've done because it's a safety, it's a hazard, it's a wall on the street. It's we're not, going
I understand.
to go forward here. We're very sorry. We really are.
I appreciate that.
You know, I can only tell you that any work done in a house, inside and out, and we are spent now a long time, years actually, having consultants actually look at the code. They're all listed in the codes. They should, or you can always call the building department and ask, how, I wanna put this in, like, from landscape to roofs to window, whatever it is, inside and out. You can always call the building department and say, I'm planning to do this. What are the rules around it? What are the issues? Or I'm thinking of it, so that you're not obligating yourself and think, oh, somebody's gonna come around. We recommend it to everybody, like, nothing's stopping you just to call and know what the rules are, because they're all in writing. That's how it
Understood,
works.
lesson,
Yeah.
lesson learned.
We're very sorry
I
about it.
understand. Okay. What's next? I'll try to pursue this with my, contractor. I just asked him to give me some time to work it out, but I understand,
We
Well,
can't
that's
actually
standard.
tell you what to do,
No,
but,
yeah.
as you've heard, we think that might be one of your options.
Yeah, understood. Thank you for your time. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Next on our agenda. Local law to revise our village charter regarding residency requirements for certain village positions.
You may ask if that charter requirements corporation, any within
Right.
So the charter section 2 need to be revised, language was cleaned up a little bit. It's basically the village management corporation. And they decide on any place to do this check.
Is everybody here for that? I don't know. Who isn't here? Bob. So I just, were you on the phone? You were on the phone, but you were not. So Bob, in order to reorganizing the legal department, and we are going to look for an attorney, and then Stuart resigns. Our coverage that live in the village, when Stuart was hired, he reminded us that we actually changed it to say he can live in the town. I just think we need to expand this green too, but I don't want anything beyond county personally, because I don't want to come from Jersey, Connecticut, etc. So, they need to know local municipal laws. So the opening to Westchester, we think that's wide enough. So that's the conversation that we have.
Rockland's out of the picture.
Correct.
We'll call for a public hearing this next week.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you.
So that concludes our meeting for tonight.
Okay, folks. Do we have exec tonight? I don't think so. Okay, so this concludes our meeting, 8:26. We thank everyone who joined us, and we will be back next week for legislative session. Have a good evening.